Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another normal game, Silver vs. Gold up in this bitch.
Mr. MaximusBlack,
Yeah.
hit me up with the sound of being absolutely soul-crushed at the Super Bowl. Yeah, that was pretty much internally what Sherman was doing. You almost pass out there?
I almost passed out from that. Alright, well, starting up here in the top position of Catalina, we have D Knight. And over here, Frodo Leggins.
Great name.
Great.
I fucking love that name. And enough about Starcraft. You wanted to talk about UFC.
Yes, yeah.
How many ways do you want to shit on Silva in this conversation?
I want to shit on Silva pretty hard right now.
Okay, well that was a given.
So for all you UFC fans out there, Silva, arguably the greatest fighter of all time.
Are we going to talk about the fight first before you go into
multiple things?
Before we go into the other thing?
I'm going to talk about multiple things. Okay.
All right.
Anderson Silva.
The Spider.
The Spider. Arguably the greatest fighter of all time.
Yep.
UFC history, mixed martial arts history.
I don't even know if it's arguable.
Okay. He is. Okay.
Yeah.
He is. If he isn't, he's top 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Depending on the fan. But even though I'm not a huge Silva fan, I'll admit it.
Yeah.
The guy's a genius.
Yeah.
He's a fucking monster. He's God. Okay.
Yeah.
The only other person who has ever made an impact like him really is like Gracie. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, Hoist Gracie was like a pioneer.
Yeah. In that sort of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And anyway, even Silva is at a way next caliber than what he ever was. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, he fights Chris Weidman, loses, gets knocked out.
Yep.
This is probably because, people say he got cocky. He's doing what Silva does, thinking he's invincible. You know, bouncing around in the octagon, taunting a little bit.
Can I say something before you go too much further than this?
Go ahead.
In regards to that, Silva, it wasn't like say Chael Sonnen, who regardless at the beginning, before a fight, in the fight, after the fight, cock bite the whole way through. All right, Silva used that in there as a tactic.
It's a tool.
But before and after the fight, the most respectable individual,
absolutely,
in the UFC, bar none.
Absolutely. But I also think, honestly, his ego when he gets in the octagon, he becomes the Spider. Okay. He's a.
Don't you think you would have to be though?
I understand, but I think he knows he's such a badass that I truly do believe that he got cocky. And
sure,
it is part of his tactic.
I would fall to that if I had defended 10 times.
He's a counter fighter, right?
Yeah.
He gets people pissed off. Right, he's sitting there, got his hands down,
he waits,
flopping his head, and he waits.
He waits for exactly.
Yeah,
no joke. If
he's
you
a
time this,
counter-fighter.
if you watch the last 10 fights, he waits for exactly a minute and 20 seconds of the first, and then he comes out.
Yeah.
After he's figured you out.
Yeah,
and he starts hitting you in the face.
Yeah, he smashes you up. Okay, so he does what Silva does, but Weidman was ready for this. He trained for this.
Yeah.
And he clipped him, knocked him the fuck out.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you've got the diehard Anderson Silva fans, and I'm willing to debate with this in the chat. I'm willing to debate with this, okay? The diehard fans go...
I'm a diehard.
Yeah, and Adam's a diehard. The only fucking pay-per-views he'll watch really is the one with Silva in it, okay? So, Adam, we can have this argument.
Sure.
Okay? So, a lot of the Silva fans go, you know what? He lost because he was cocky. He lost because he thought he could do what he does to everybody else, and he got caught. You know, anybody and everybody can get caught in the octagon, and that's the truth. But... you know, Silva, and he was going through some personal shit, whatever the fucking case was, he got rocked, okay? So people were like, instantly, Dana was like, oh, well, this is cash money, we're gonna instantly give him a rematch. Sure. Weidman gets a rematch, we get next pay-per-view, and they fight. Weidman, once again, still dominating, rocks him, and then, as the fight continues, throws the kick, perfect check.
Worst freak accident in the history of the sport.
Yeah, and
barring a death.
Yeah, and breaks his leg.
Yep.
Okay, snaps it. It's nasty. So Weidman beats him again.
Yep.
Okay. Here's the problem. People go, well, Weidman won that one because of the freak accident.
Well, that's just stupid. It did, obviously he won it because of the freak accident,
yes.
And it is impossible to say one way or another, even if he rocked him before, if he would
it
have
was
won.
going to be over or not, but still.
Yeah, still.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Silva's obviously he hadn't lost like a fight in like 7 years or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
To Weidman, he's obviously scared of him in some way. You know, there's obviously got to be that fear that, you know, this is my maker. You know what I mean? So this isn't.
And it's his motivator.
It's his motivator at the same
Yeah,
time. So
yeah.
he's going to push him to be a better version of himself.
Yeah.
But anyway, he gets his leg snapped. Okay. GG. People are thinking Anderson Silva is done.
Which, can we frame this? He is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu, okay? If he is trained like
kick?
pretty much everybody else, that means that they toughen the bones in their shins
Absolutely.
in Brazil for this specific fucking thing.
Absolutely.
You know, kickboxing or jiu-jitsu or anything like that with any amount of kicking in it, they basically, it's like it's like Ip Man, what's the name of that martial art that I'm thinking of right now? But almost, well, it's a kung fu, it's everything else. You know, it's the same concept: punching water, punching sand, punching a wall to build up the bone, so that when you do hit somebody,
it doesn't break.
You don't break your own bones. So to put it into perspective of how much of a fucking crazy thing that not just one, but both of his bones in his shin snapped is a crazy freak fucking accident.
Okay. Yep.
But it still happened. And yes, yeah, it was crazy. But that was just to frame how crazy
but
that was.
At that point, people go, okay, Anderson Silva's done. Oh shit.
Well, he's 38 years old. And he broke his leg in half.
He's 38 at the time. Snapped his leg in half. He came off now 2 losses.
Most people would probably pack it in at that point.
People still considered him to be the greatest of all time. And now what I'm going to talk about coming up.
Yeah, sure.
That is to be, you know, has he tarnished his name? So he comes back to fight Nick Diaz. What? Not even a year later. A year later. Okay.
Which is crazy.
Which is fucking insane. Okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna come back a year later and fight. Okay, for one, Nick Diaz. Okay, Nick Diaz is no joke. Okay?
No.
The guy also went many years undefeated.
In fact, he's got
well,
the
he
highest,
was defeated before, but I mean,
Anderson
without
Silva
losing.
is most accurate striker.
Yeah.
Nick Diaz, most landed strikes by miles above everybody
else.
else.
Okay, he's a fighter. He doesn't fear anybody. He's a hothead. He's been out of the game for like a year and a half and
so
almost
it's a
2
crazy
years.
matchup.
It's a good matchup.
It's accuracy versus
problem is,
raw.
Nick had to move up weight to
fight,
which is whatever. Nick didn't care. Nick got a $500,000 paycheck. Silva got an $800,000 paycheck.
I don't think it was that hard for him to move up weight.
No, because his normal weight is around that. So usually he has to cut.
Yeah, it's like Silva is in that perfect
So he was
zone,
fine with the fight, okay?
Yeah.
And he said he only wanted to come back as if he was fighting someone great and he was getting paid big. So you get
that checks both of those boxes off pretty quick.
You get your biggest paycheck of all time, and you fight the greatest fighter of all time.
Yeah.
So we get in there. Nick Diaz. I watched the fight. Did you watch the fight?
Yes.
Okay. You watched the fight. Nick Diaz is he didn't shit talk like he normally does before the fights. He's notorious for it. But as soon as the fight starts, he starts a shit.
Yeah.
Right? He lays down in the octagon. He's leaning against the fucking octagon. He's doing all these taunting and saying, "Come on, fight me, come in, come in." So of course, Silva's doing what Silva does. He's just feeling him out.
It did absolutely nothing to Silva.
Did absolutely nothing to Silva. Silva dominates first round. Second round comes around, and Diaz is actually getting some shots off. He's putting in some work. Needless to say, the fight ends up being, in my opinion, fairly boring. Okay, Silva is still, you know, it's.
The last 2 rounds picked up a lot.
It picked up quite a bit.
Yeah.
It was still the fight of the night on the card.
And can I just say, there was one kick that was when Diaz was up against, and it was a spinning back kick. That if it had landed,
it would have knocked.
A fucking singularity would have opened up over Nick Diaz's head and would have sucked his entire body into it, and he would have been teleported to a different fucking dimension.
A dimension interstellar would have happened.
Yeah,
Nick Diaz would have got fucking smacked into a box of nothingness.
That was
him in a fucking library somewhere.
Not only did he maintain his balance through that whole thing, that was the most powerful spinning back kick I've ever witnessed in my life.
Oh, it was epic.
He would have literally broke his face in half with that fucking kick.
Yeah, it would have been epic, okay?
Oh my god.
It made Jean-Claude Van Damme look like he just learned how to kick.
I was so sour that it missed by and we're talking centimeters. He felt the breeze past his face.
He would have been dead. It would have been game over.
After that kick...
You thought the leg injury was the worst injury of all time? There would have been death.
His face...
There would have been a death.
No.
His nose would have came off.
No, he would have had a prosthetic nose for the rest of his life.
So... Now that shitty game happened.
Oh, thank God. Okay. We can just talk instead of following it around.
All right. We'll talk more StarCraft next game, but this time I'm going to...
we had 2 topics we had to get out of the way.
Yeah, we had to get out of the way. Okay?
Yeah.
So they fight. Okay, some people think it was an okay fight. I thought it was okay. Okay.
Well, Silva usually finishes every single fight that he's in,
I
right?
wanted to see Silva knock him out. In fact, I thought for sure he was going to knock him out. But Diaz is he's a beast.
Part of me thought that it wasn't going to happen because I felt like, and I'm not trying to say this is an excuse for Silva or anything like that, but I honestly feel like this might have been part of it, is that Silva wanted to see if he was capable after what happened of going the fucking distance.
Yeah, I mean he can, but in training camps you can do that, right? It doesn't matter. Diaz's training camp, he fights 3 of the world's craziest fighters in 3 different divisions. Simultaneously, he'll fight somebody 170 pounds, then he'll fight somebody 205, then he'll fight somebody at 250.
I understand, but
3 rounds of each. Right?
I just think that might have been part of what was going on there. It's not to say that because he only went for a finisher.
I honestly think he
2 times that entire fight.
I think Silva was respecting Nick Diaz's knockout power, and the last thing that Silva wanted to do was get knocked out.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he'd be done at that point. You get knocked out by Nick Diaz when you come back, you're retired.
And not every fight needs to be a fucking knockout.
But all the Silva fans out there wanted to see Silva back at his form, knocking people out and coming back for the belt.
That's
right?
high hopes 365 days
whatever.
After
the fight happens. He wins the fight. Okay, it gets a unanimous decision. Sure.
Yeah.
I find out yesterday or the day before yesterday that both fighters failed the drug test. Silva,
this is a UFC problem in general.
Silva, 2 different types of steroids.
Yes.
And Diaz, marijuana. Okay,
Yeah.
Diaz this is his 3rd felony against the marijuana. It's fucking weed, okay? And he smoked it a month before the fight. It's fucking weed, whatever. Let's just drop that right now.
The thing is, you
get a fine. You're not supposed to do it. The other thing that pisses me off is John Jones, who got caught with cocaine in his system, very, very small amount a month before.
Right.
That isn't actually supposed to be announced. Those are private. When it's cocaine, that's actually not supposed to be announced to the public.
Why? Because it's such an aggressive drug.
I don't know why, but
I did black tar heroin. I made a poor life choice.
It's not on the list. Apparently, it's not on the list, or at least that's the way it is in Nevada. It's not on the list of drugs that should be announced.
Where did the fight take place where that got announced?
I don't know that much about the sport. But anyway, and John Jones is potentially going to be suing because it tarnished his name and anyway, that's whatever.
He's also a fucking star that did godforsaken cocaine. Suck it the fuck up, John Jones.
Yeah, I understand, but I mean still, you know what I mean? It's like you become you're a professional basketball player, okay?
Yeah.
And somebody at the head finds out that you once decided to, cheat on your wife.
That happens a lot.
Okay?
Yeah.
You decided to cheat on your wife.
That's a common thing.
And they do a lie detector test, right, to see if you've been doing steroids. Okay? I'm just throwing this out in layman's terms.
Okay.
They just do a random lie detector test.
For steroids?
Yeah, I'm throwing it out to make sure that you're not using any enhancement drugs, okay?
Okay.
But during these questions, they also want to question your morality. Okay? And your character. So they ask you, have you ever cheated on your wife? And you say no, and you failed. Okay? But they just throw that question out there.
Okay.
And so what they decide to do is when you've been caught doing performance enhancement drugs, they let the world know. But they also just decide to throw in the fact that you also cheated on your wife. You failed that test. Okay, even though they're not supposed to, they may know this. They are supposed to know or whatever on their end, but they just throw it out there to the media just because they want to. Okay, they have no right to do it.
That's a really horrible analogy.
No, it's not, because it's the same. It's the same thing. They were not supposed to say about the cocaine. The only comparison you could make here is if they were in basketball and he got caught for doing cocaine, and then they told the world about doing cocaine even though he can't. This is not. Otherwise, John fucking Jones would have to bang 3 chicks and then have him do that. You can't make that comparison. It's insane. No. Think about what you just said. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. You can't. That's like me saying, oh well, one guy played in traffic and got hit by a bus, another guy played in traffic and got hit by a bus, and they told him about his cheating wife. Okay, what I'm trying to say is it's just as irrelevant. Okay? It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's just as irrelevant. There's
Sure.
no need for them to share the information. I think that's the point that I'm trying.
Well, it's not that there's no need. It's just that they're not supposed to.
Okay, yes, there you go.
If that's the argument, they're not supposed to, then they're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to.
Sure,
right?
then just say they're not supposed to.
Okay, there you go. All right, fuck my analogy then.
Okay.
All right, analogy's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you win that. Okay. Not supposed to.
Right.
So they ended up sharing it. Okay.
Right.
So John Jones gets a fucking shit ton of flack for it. Okay.
Of course, yeah.
Now Nick Diaz is getting flack for weed, but then again, people don't really care because it's Nick Diaz and he does whatever the fuck Nick Diaz wants to do anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's the hothead. He doesn't care.
Absolutely.
Now we go over to Silva.
Sure.
All right. The world's greatest fighter of
Yep.
all time.
Yep.
Caught using steroids.
Yep. Surprise.
So what? For one, this is great news for Silva haters. Okay. This is bad news for Silva because he should have his children. He's got what, 5 or 6 kids.
Yeah.
He's pushing 40.
Mm-hmm.
His kids begged him to throw in the towel after the leg break. Begged him.
Most people, even if you were
His
28,
family
would probably have said the same thing.
Because he's been doing it his whole life. Spend
Sure.
some time with your kids. You're filthy rich. You're a fucking legend.
Sure.
Keep your legacy. But no, he decided to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's caught with steroids, and now his legacy is tarnished. I don't care what they say because it could be this argument. Well, would he have been able to come back this soon without steroids? Would he have beaten Nick Diaz with steroids? Was he on steroids fighting Chris Weidman and still lost twice? Was he on steroids all these other times? There's all these questions now. How legit is Silva? Did he only do steroids this time around to get prepared to get in shape to come back and fight this soon before he got too old to make a run for the belt?
These are the questions. Yeah, and these are questions that are unfortunately never going to be answered.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
At best, it's if any of that was true, you would have to rely on Silva to come out and say that they were true.
Mm-hmm.
I would be shocked if.
Here's the thing: Silva is denying it now. He's saying,
Sure.
I've never done steroids, and I will prove my innocence.
Yeah. To be fair to him, there has been at least one other time in the UFC, not even talking about anything else, in the UFC where they have tested somebody positive for multiple types of steroids and then having that test actually have been false.
Yeah, but I mean, there's two
False
in
positive.
this test. There's 2 different types of steroid apparently that he's been tested for. It just all makes sense. It just all makes fucking sense. And here's my problem. I think Silva at this point should just do what John Jones did. Get on, apologize to his fans, apologize to UFC and his sponsors, throw up the towel, and keep his legacy, keep what he has left. I mean, he's still the world's greatest, okay?
Right.
That no one's going to take that from him. Whether you're on steroids or not, the things that the guy achieved is not anybody can do, okay? I think at this point, he should retire, throw up the towel, and just call it a day. Even Chris Weidman said, I think that Silva at this point should go retire, spend time with his family. We hate to see him have a downfall, kind of like a Chuck Liddell, or just kind of, he's so prideful that he wants to just, I don't know what more he has to prove to the world. He's accomplished everything.
Well, here's the thing, it has nothing to do with pride. It's the same reason that what's his name, football fucking guy. Shit, why is now the time to fucking forget about this? The quarterback. Oh, son of a bitch for the Jets.
I don't know.
Fuck. Anyway, people who are listening know who I'm talking
Okay.
about. It's the same reason that he came back and kept going, even though he was just floundering and fucking
Like Michael Jordan.
Even though he's considered
Like Michael Jordan.
Michael came back and still posted fucking 28 points a game, but it's not 40, 50 points a
Okay,
game.
Wayne
before.
Gretzky.
Okay. Anyway, the analogy I'm making actually makes really good sense here,
Okay,
because
sure.
he came back and it wasn't just like he showed up and did okay. He came back and fucking shit the bed every damn time, kind of thing, right? That he wasn't coming back because he thought that he was the best fucking thing since sliced bread. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't about anything. He's doing it because they love, and it's who they are. It's who they identify as, and they can't imagine
Life without
separating themselves from it. That's why Silva's a fucking fighter. In order to be as good as Silva is, regardless of if he fucking took anabolic steroids from the age of 4, it's who he is.
Yeah, I get it.
You could give me 5 different types of fucking steroids and 60 years of fucking training, I will never be anywhere shades close to Anderson Silva.
No.
He is a born-bred fighter. Mm-hmm. It's in him. It's who he is. That's why he came back. Mm-hmm. That's why he wants to keep fighting anytime he comes back, even though his family is asking him not to for various reasons. He's, he's getting old. He should spend time with his kids. He's a guy came off a crazy injury. Mm-hmm. His health, people are worried about it. But for them, it's about the fact that that's who they identify as, that's who they are, and to remove that from them, they don't know what they're going to do with themselves. They don't know what life's going to be on the other side. It's like a professional wrestler when they remove the wrestlers, right? So that's why that's happening. For the steroids, I would be very. First of all, it's not like, even if he did do steroids,
he did,
right?
He did.
And if he did,
let's just say let's get this notion right now for all the Silva fanboys out there.
No, but I'm saying
he did steroids.
I'm saying if he did steroids like his whole fucking career.
Okay, yes,
right.
No, okay, well that is to be unknown.
That's the unknown. But in this case, if he did steroids in this case for any other reason than to repair his 38-year-old body in a 1-year span to be able to do this, which is what I think happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think he's done steroids. If he did steroids right now, and then I don't think it's happened at any other point in his career. I mean, look at him, for Christ's sake.
I'm on with you.
There are a lot of other guys.
I'm on board with you with this.
Rampage Jackson, a lot more fucking jacked up than Anderson fucking Silva. There are tons of people doing steroids in the UFC that just haven't been fucking caught. And if you think anywhere else, you're fucking out of your goddamn tree. Every professional sport, this side of table tennis.
Yep.
And chess,
esports, man,
are doing steroids,
esports,
or performance-enhancing drugs. But in this case, steroids, they're everywhere. Very few clean athletes, because the level of play in every sport is so high that the genetic freak show that would be required to not have that is almost unobtainable.
Yep. I agree, and here's the kicker.
But he did it to heal himself.
UFC knew about this
they should have canceled the fight
before the fucking
but they won't.
fight. You know why they didn't do it? Because huge pay-per-view money. They knew that they were gonna, if they announced this, Silva's name would have been wrecked. People wouldn't have given a shit. They would have boycotted the fucking fight if it happened later on. They would have lost out on all this hype, everything. Nick Diaz probably would have said, "Screw this shit." It would have been a shit show. So it is on UFC at this point.
And this is the third pay-per-view in a row.
It's happened a lot. It's been happening a lot.
It's the third pay-per-view in a row.
I can see the cocaine thing from John Jones. That's whatever. Let the fight happen. He did a little bit of blow. He's young. He's partying a lot of fame, whatever. I still don't agree with it.
Sure.
But if you're gonna do recreational drugs and you're gonna party, then so be it. I mean, he came out, whether you believe him or not, he said he's only done it a few times. He doesn't have a problem. I believe that. Obviously, you can't have that big of a problem if you're performing. If you're fucking God.
Sure.
Okay. So it is what it is. He got caught doing some coke.
Yeah.
I think that the UFC fight should still go on. Okay. Whatever. But when the UFC knows that a fighter such as Anderson Silva is on steroids, that fight needs to be called off.
Sure.
It's not fair to Nick Diaz.
I agree.
It's not fair to UFC fans. It's not fair to all the other fighters that abide by the rules. And there's already this thing where...
Or the ones that don't get caught.
Or the ones that don't get... You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Silva, if you're going to use steroids, only use them up to a certain point because you're going to get tested.
Yeah.
So you might as well stop 3 months before the fight or whatever, however long it stays in your system.
Yeah.
Just stop the madness. And, Dana White, all those guys, Lorenzo, they want money.
Sure they do.
They want the money, and I think this is a problem that the UFC needs to start dealing with here.
Oh, absolutely.
And I guess the point that I'm making throughout this entire talk here that we've had about the UFC is I think that Silva at this point should retire, or if he doesn't retire, he needs to first of all man up and say that I used the steroids, and just man up about it, and then let Dana give him the fight against Weidman, and let that be it. And if he wants one more title shot, then fucking give it to him. He does. I mean, who else? He's Silva. Give him the title fight. If he wins, retire with the belt. Let these other fighters fight for it. If he loses, retire. That's
Yeah.
But I still think at this point, especially with the steroid usage and his injury and his family being so public about him wanting to stop, I think that he should just throw in the towel now.
Yeah. For me, when I heard about the steroid usage, obviously the first thing you want to do, even if as a Silva fan, is you get disappointed about it, right?
Yeah, of course.
But the two scenarios for me are, like I said, A, he used them to get healthy enough to get back in a year. And then just didn't stop soon enough to get it all out of his system before the test.
Yep.
Or B, and like I said before, and even if I remove myself from being a Silva fan, right, and just try and look at this as objectively as possible, the fact that this wouldn't be the first or even second or even whatever time that somebody has been caught with not just one but multiple steroids in their system and have it be a false positive. I don't want to immediately just assume that even he used it to get healthy in time. If he did, it was for that reason. I don't fucking blame him. He's 38 years old. He broke his godforsaken leg in half. But I'm still...
He should at least have the decency as a fighter to not fight right after that and maybe wait another year and do full training with a year without being on steroids. If he needs to use the steroids to get back in the gym, to keep, the momentum, so he doesn't go soft and he doesn't completely get out of his element, then sure. But to use steroids leading all the way up, train your ass off, and then go and beat up Nick Diaz for $800,000.
But I don't. When I look at Silva, steroids.
And this is assuming that he hasn't done this in the past. He could be like, what's his face? He could be like an Armstrong here and have been using steroids his whole career. And the good guy, the fucking guy that's been winning all this shit and he's been idolized and could be doing no wrong.
Sure.
Could actually be the villain the entire time. You never know. 5 years from now, or a year from now, or next week, there could be a documentary of all these UFC fighters and coaches saying, yeah, this is the big dirty secret of Anderson Silva. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
Time will tell.
We also don't know if that's a false positive. And I'm not saying that as a Silva fan. I've already told you that what I think happened is that he used it to heal himself.
Yeah.
That makes the most fucking sense to me.
Yep.
But we still, honest to God, and that's the reason why they're trying to double check this shit, is we honest to God don't know if it's a fault because it's happened before.
When there's two different steroids in your body and a guy comes from a fucking snapped in a half leg in less than a year to come back and fight in that form, and he's throwing roundhouse kicks that fucking Jet Li himself couldn't do if he had a twin and you fused them.
Yeah.
Fuck.
No, I agree. That's what I think happened.
He's denying it. Of course he will. It is what it is. We don't know.
That's
the thing is, it's like it's.
That's the other thing for me.
Nobody's going. We don't know if Nick Diaz smoked weed. Is that a fucking false positive? No one's saying, oh, did Jones's cocaine in his system be a false positive?
Let's be fair here. You just made the exact argument that they shouldn't give a fuck about whether or not they're using recreational drugs, but a PED is a totally different ballgame.
No, it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you failed a drug test. All right, you failed a drug test, and to say that one drug is more likely to be a false positive than another, and not even throw that possibility out there. The reason why, if somebody said Nick Diaz was positive for steroids and Silva was for weed, nobody would say, "Oh, well, there's a potential false positive for Nick Diaz."
Maybe there is.
It's because nobody can comprehend.
Maybe there is
that Silva, the god himself, is using steroids. That is why there are some people out there making an argument, and it's very few. I'm gonna tell you right now, the world right now is pissed.
Well, think about what you just said there. If it was anybody else that didn't have such a crazy legacy, why there would be no reason to get so interested in whether or not it is real or not, because you don't want to look at somebody like that.
You don't want to believe it.
And immediately, it's not even about believing it. It's you don't want to strip them of all of that before you can absolutely prove with impeccable certainty that it is the case. If this was just some rando motherfucker coming up in the UFC who's 6 fights in trying to get himself onto out of the prelim card, who gets tested for it, there's not a lot of people that are going to be like, well, shit, we need to look real deep into this crap because at the end of the day...
Well, you see, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the UFC, and that's the problem with the mindset of the fans, is it should be a priority for every fighter.
It should be, but that's why it's happening.
When he became a positive, because it proved positive, he should, if it was such a big, if it was, you want to protect a legacy, or if there's so much on the line here, retest him. Do a second test, right after the fact. As soon as they get it, test him again. If it comes up again, dude, you're fucked. I don't care.
Sure.
Or Dana, at the very least, should have at least called off the fight and said, listen.
No, I agree.
You came up with either steroids. There's 2 different types of steroids in your fucking system, bud.
I agree.
You came, like, look at... I mean, we could have this... I'm not going to sit here for another 20 minutes and hash it over.
Here's my solution, and the thing is, it's out of the UFC's hands to a degree. Here is that really the UFC should be pushing in the fighting commissions that they should be tested, 2 months before,
and a month before,
2 months before, and then immediately after the fight is done. And get tests on both sides.
And that happens a lot of the time, is they are tested. Problem is, they don't want to test too close to the fight, because a lot of players don't like, having fluids. They don't like being tested. There's a bunch of different...
Too fucking bad.
It's you know how fighters are, right?
Suck it up.
You know how they are. You're not taking my piss. You're not poking me with a needle. You're not doing any of these things.
Too bad.
Because I don't even have sex while I'm training.
They're not
you know
taking.
what I mean?
They're not taking 6 quarts of fucking blood here.
No, I know, but that's how fighters are. They're very like.
Well, too bad.
They're very hard. I'm on board with you.
Yeah, that's the solution. But the ultimate solution is when it comes before the fight, it's ultimately, like we said before, it's ultimately up to Dana and the rest of them to say, okay, guys, for the legitimacy of the sport here, regardless of how much money we're going to make, we need to postpone this fight.
Yep.
Until
even make it a month or 2 down the road
until we figure it out, or the steroids have successfully left his body to the point where we can no longer call it an advantage.
Yep.
And then do the fight then.
Yep.
And that's it. That's all you can fucking do. But they're not going to do that because it makes them so much fucking money.
If it was some bum in the undercard, they probably would have just canceled the fight and been like, "Sorry, bud, you've just blown your chance to be in the UFC."
Yeah.
But since it's Silva, there isn't a goddamn chance that they're gonna.
No.
It's just not gonna happen. It's like, can you imagine? Dana just went to George Rush St. Pierre and said, "Hey, do you want to fight at the next UFC in Montreal?" Of course, George said, "No, I don't." Can you imagine if George came back and he was tested for steroids a month before? And this is going to be one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time. There's not a sweet chance in tits that Dana's going to go, all right, we finally got GSP on board, but he's on steroids, so let's just call it. We can't have this fight.
No.
It's not going to happen, right?
No.
So they need to stop doing favors. It's bad news for Silva fans out there, but at the same time, we can't discredit him for all the shit that he's done. But I truly think that he should retire now before he starts tarnishing his legacy even more. And I think he should leave on a win. I don't think he should leave on a loss, and especially against Weidman. If he ends up fighting Weidman again and losing to him 3 times, I don't see how this. I don't care if this is all you know. Start to know your family. Start to know other things. Be a coach. Do whatever you need to do. But who am I to say? You know what I mean? I can't tell the legend to retire. Who the fuck am I? You know what I mean? All I can do is give you my opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. I know we just rambled for about 20 minutes, but Adam is looking up a
Brett Favre.
There you go.
That's the fucker I'm trying to think of. That was going to drive me nuts. I had to look that up. I had to look it up. Now you know who I'm talking about. That's who I was trying to say. That's the analogy. Brett Favre came back and just absolutely massacred his legacy.
So yeah, guys, in the comments below, let me know a couple things. Number one, do you think Silva should retire? Do you think Silva was using steroids for the majority of his career, or was this just a thing to get him back in the octagon? Which is what I want to believe. That he just used it this time.
I think he would look like a totally different person if he was using steroids his whole godforsaken career.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel. I feel like he just did it for this sole purpose of getting back in the ring as soon as possible, or the octagon. And lastly, do you think that the UFC is hurting right now? I know that they've been getting huge numbers because of the certain pay-per-views that are up, but with GSP gone, this Silva steroid thing here, John Jones dominating everybody in his division, just making him look stupid. Do you guys think the UFC right now is hurting? Let me know, because I part of me thinks it's hurting a little bit, especially its legitimacy throughout all these drug problems that the organization is going through right now. It's fucky. And I mean, the UFC complains all the time about judges in Nevada and stuff like that, and how that, you know, it's fucked up, and how if Dana is very vocal, and he straight up says, you know, the judges are crooked and all this other shit, and if he'd leave if he could, but he can't, obviously, Las Vegas, but yet he doesn't want to fix his shit.
Yeah.
You know, if there's crooked judging, you're making crooked fights and you're letting them go for the sake of money. That's it. So let me know in the comments below, guys. We will get back to casting StarCraft next, I promise. And for the 10 people that are still watching this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Peace.